welcome to our deep dive into, well, a slower, more deliberate approach to productivity. It's especially relevant if you're a knowledge worker and maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
The source material for our exploration today is Cal Newport's fascinating book, Slow Productivity.
Okay.
And to help guide us through all the nuances of this topic, we have our in-house expert here.
I'm happy to be here.
Now, the book opens with this anecdote
Okay.
that really captured my attention. Renowned New Yorker writer John McPhee
Right.
would spend weeks lying on a picnic table just thinking about the structure of a complex article.
Wow.
So could this be the secret to his, prolific award-winning career?
Interesting.
The book proposes that this is all. So are we with understanding productivity altogether?
Potentially?
Is busyness not the same as being productive?
That's precisely what Cal Newport argues in the book.
Okay.
He terms it pseudo-productivity. This mistaken belief that a multitude of tasks, emails, and meetings equate to, better work. This idea is rooted in those outdated industrial models,
Right.
where output was very easily quantifiable,
Yeah.
and busyness truly did signify progress.
Right.
However, this model is ill-suited for the cognitive demands of today's knowledge work.
Right. It seems like we're trying to apply assembly line logic
Exactly.
to creative and intellectually demanding jobs. No wonders so many of us feel completely exhausted and burnt out.
Absolutely. And Newport further emphasizes that the advent of technology, particularly email and instant messaging,
Right.
has just worsened this problem.
Okay.
The expectation to be perpetually on, responding to every notification,
Right.
regardless of its actual relevance to, meaningful work. This has become the norm.
So it makes me think, are we truly accomplishing more?
Right.
Or were we just creating an illusion of productivity?
It's a good question.
The book cites some startling statistics.
Yeah.
Like, one study found that knowledge workers check their email
Okay.
on average every 6 minutes.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yes. That constant compulsion to be visible and responsive takes a significant toll.
Right.
It fragments our attention. It diminishes our capacity for deep focus on important tasks. And ultimately, it results in, less creative and impactful work.
So it seems like we've identified the problem,
Okay.
this pseudo-productivity.
Right.
It's detrimental.
It is.
But what's the solution?
Okay.
Can we genuinely achieve more by doing less?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That forms the crux of Newport's argument. He presents a compelling case for what he calls slow productivity. An intentional approach to work that prioritizes deep focus,
Right.
quality over quantity, and a sustainable pace.
I'm intrigued by this concept. Could you elaborate on how slow productivity differs from simply slacking off?
Sure. Slow productivity is not about doing less work,
Okay.
but about being deliberate and strategic with our time and energy. To exemplify this, Newport uses the example of CBS in the 1990s.
Okay.
The network was experiencing a decline in ratings, and the then CEO, Les Moonves,
Right.
reacted by demanding longer working hours from his employees.
This butt-in-chair mentality
Yeah.
seems quite prevalent even today.
It does.
Was that the key to CBS's turnaround, though?
Interestingly, the network's resurgence was not a result of those extended hours. Instead, it was sparked by the endeavors of Anthony Zucker,
Okay.
a tram operator in Las Vegas at the time.
A tram operator.
Yeah, he had this concept for a procedural police show that would prominently feature forensic science.
Wait a minute, are we talking about the genesis of CSI?
Precisely.
Wow.
Zucker devoted years to nurturing this idea,
Why?
writing and rewriting scripts pitching to networks,
Right.
facing rejection.
Yeah.
But he persisted. His
Right.
commitment to quality over speed
Okay.
ultimately resulted in a show that became immensely successful
Wow.
and propelled CBS back to the top.
So this demonstrates how, focused, sustained effort, even if it unfolds at a slower pace, can yield pretty remarkable outcomes.
Precisely. It's a powerful example of the contrasting approaches to work. Moonves was fixated on activity,
Right.
on the appearance of busyness, while Zucker concentrated on crafting something truly exceptional,
Right.
even if it meant working in a way that might not be conventionally recognized or
Right.
celebrated in a traditional office setting.
So how do we apply this slow productivity philosophy in our own lives?
Newport outlines a set of principles and strategies,
Okay.
each aimed at helping us escape
Right.
the pseudo-productivity trap, and embrace a more deliberate and fulfilling way of working.
Let's delve into those strategies then.
Okay.
I'm particularly curious about the concept of limiting the big.
Okay.
It seems counterintuitive,
It does.
especially in a culture that encourages us to constantly take on more.
It is indeed counterintuitive, yet remarkably powerful. Andrew Wiles, the mathematician who famously solved Fermat's last theorem,
Right.
illustrates this principle beautifully. He dedicated 7 years of his life
Wow.
solely to this problem, often working in isolation and foregoing other commitments and collaborations.
7 years. It's an extraordinary level of dedication.
It is.
What was the outcome of such focused effort, though?
This unwavering focus allowed Wiles to achieve a depth of concentration
Right.
that ultimately culminated in a groundbreaking mathematical breakthrough. And that's the essence of limiting the big.
Go.
By strategically reducing the number of major projects or goals we pursue at any given time,
Right.
we free up mental bandwidth and energy to make substantial progress on what truly matters.
So it's not about declining every opportunity that comes our way,
Right.
but about being selective
Yes.
and concentrating our efforts on what truly aligns with our goals.
Precisely. It's about identifying those 1 or 2 missions, as Newport calls them, that will truly make a significant impact in our professional lives,
Okay.
and giving them the dedicated time and attention they deserve.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
However, what about all the smaller tasks and requests
Right.
that incessantly bombard us? How can we prevent them from, sidetracking our focus and pulling us back into that vortex of pseudo-productivity?
That's where the principle of containing the small comes into play.
Okay.
To illustrate this, Newport turns to an unexpected historical figure, Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin.
We often perceive him as the embodiment of busyness,
I do.
but he actually had a remarkably effective system for managing those minor tasks.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm eager to hear how Benjamin Franklin tackled this challenge.
Franklin was a printer by trade
Right.
and was constantly being pulled in various directions. He recognized that streamlining the day-to-day operations of his business
Okay.
would free up time and energy for his more ambitious,
Right.
intellectual, and civic pursuits.
How did he manage to achieve this, though?
Okay.
Did he delegate tasks or perhaps find ways to outsource them?
He did indeed.
Okay.
He employed a skilled foreman named David Hall, who essentially took charge of the daily grind,
Right.
allowing Franklin to focus on his writing, scientific experiments, and community organizing.
That's an interesting approach.
It is.
It's akin to having a personal chief of staff to handle all those administrative details.
Precisely, Newport suggests that we can apply a similar approach to our own work,
Right.
even without the resources for a full-time assistant.
Okay.
It's about establishing systems and routines to efficiently manage the influx of smaller tasks so they don't consume our time and mental energy.
In the book, he offers numerous practical tips
He does.
for implementing this principle.
Uh-huh.
One that I found particularly helpful was the suggestion of using office hours
Oh, okay.
instead of responding to emails and messages sporadically throughout the day.
Right.
You allocate a specific block of time each day to address them collectively.
That's an excellent strategy. Right. Not only does it allow for batch processing of those smaller tasks,
Right.
but it also establishes clear boundaries and expectations with colleagues and clients.
It's about taking control of our time and attention
Yes.
instead of letting our inboxes dictate our every move.
Absolutely. The book dedicates an entire section to using technology strategically to contain the small. He proposes investing in professional-grade software
Right.
capable of automating or streamlining administrative tasks,
Right.
and even utilizing specialized project management tools to keep track of everything
Right.
and prevent anything from slipping through the cracks.
It's ironic because we often view technology as the root of our busyness.
I know.
Yet Newport posits that if we use it thoughtfully,
Right.
it can actually become a powerful tool for creating more space and focus in our lives.
It can.
He also discusses investing in physical tools and resources
He does.
that enhance the quality of our work,
Right.
even if it entails a higher upfront cost. Sometimes the right tools can significantly reduce the time and effort required for tasks,
They can.
allowing us to concentrate on what truly matters.
It's all about working smarter, not harder.
Right.
This brings us to another fundamental principle of slow productivity,
Okay.
working at a natural pace.
Can you shed some light on this concept?
Certainly, this principle emphasizes embracing a more varied rhythm of work,
Okay.
allowing for periods of intense focus as well as rest and creative exploration.
Hmm.
It aligns with the natural ebb and flow of energy and attention that many of us experience.
Right.
Newport draws a fascinating parallel between the work patterns of modern knowledge workers and those of our hunter-gatherer ancestors.
Hunter-gatherers and office workers.
I know, right?
That's an interesting comparison.
It is.
How do those two connect?
It's all about pacing.
Okay.
Anthropologists who've studied hunter-gatherer societies have observed that their work tends to be episodic, with bursts of intense activity followed by periods of rest and recovery. For instance, a hunting expedition might necessitate days of focused effort,
Right.
but then be followed by a period of relative downtime
Okay.
while the tribe awaits the next opportunity.
So it's not about maintaining a constant breakneck pace,
Exactly.
but rather about aligning our efforts with the natural rhythms of the task at hand.
Precisely, Newport argues that this kind of varied pacing is not only more sustainable, but can also foster more creative and innovative work. He cites examples of scientists and artists throughout history who embraced a slower, more deliberate approach to their craft,
Right.
often with remarkable results.
This reminds me of Galileo.
Okay.
I recall reading that he was a skilled musician
He was.
and would often take breaks from his scientific work to play his lute. Do you think such diversions contributed to his scientific breakthroughs?
That's a great example. It highlights the importance of allowing our minds to wander
Okay.
and engage in activities that might appear unproductive on the surface,
Right.
but actually serve to replenish our creative reserves, right,
Yes.
and allow us to return to our work with a fresh perspective.
Newport also provides excellent advice for incorporating this seasonality into our modern work lives,
He does.
even if we don't have the luxury of taking extended sabbaticals.
Right. He suggests scheduling slow seasons into our year, where we intentionally reduce our workload
Okay.
and create space for reflection, experimentation, or simply rest.
He even proposes finding creative ways to simulate seasonality, even if our jobs don't allow for extended breaks,
Right.
such as taking a day or two off each month to work on a personal project, or scheduling a regular think week to disconnect from the daily grind and explore new ideas.
It's all about reclaiming some control over our time and energy,
Right.
recognizing that true productivity isn't about perpetually pushing ourselves to the limit,
Right.
but about finding a sustainable rhythm that enables us to produce our best work over the long term.
He cites compelling examples of creatives who've embraced this slow, cyclical approach to work.
He does.
For instance, Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't write In the Heights in a single burst of inspiration.
All right.
It involved years of revisiting the material, experimenting, refining, and allowing the ideas to evolve organically.
Indeed, consider Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond.
Okay.
He wrote all his Bond novels during his annual 2-month retreats to his estate in Jamaica.
Wow.
Essentially, he would disconnect from the world, immerse himself in his writing, and emerge with a finished manuscript.
That sounds like a dream work setup.
It does.
While escaping to a tropical paradise for months on end might not be feasible for most of us.
Right.
The message is clear. We can still incorporate these principles into our lives, even within the confines of a traditional job.
Absolutely. It might require some creativity and negotiation.
Right.
But there are always options if we prioritize a slower, more deliberate approach to work.
So we've covered limiting the big and containing the small. What other strategies does Newport recommend for embracing slow productivity?
Another crucial one is obsessing over quality.
I find that principle particularly appealing. It involves shifting our focus from quantity to quality and acknowledging that slowing down and taking the time to do things right can yield far more impactful results.
Precisely, Newport uses the story of singer-songwriter Jewel to illustrate this point.
Okay.
Early in her career, she was offered a $1 million record deal.
Wow, $1 million.
But declined it.
What prompted her to turn down such a lucrative offer?
She realized that signing the deal would mean relinquishing creative control
Okay.
and rushing to release an album she wasn't fully satisfied with. She chose to prioritize quality over speed,
Okay.
and her decision ultimately paid off. Her debut album, Pieces of You, achieved phenomenal success, selling over 15 million copies.
That was a bold move.
It was.
It underscores the importance of sometimes declining opportunities that appear attractive on the surface
Right.
in order to safeguard our creative vision
Right.
and ensure we're producing work that we're truly proud of.
Indeed, Newport argues that this emphasis on quality often necessitates a more deliberate approach to our work.
Okay.
involving experimentation, iteration, and investment in tools and resources that elevate our craft.
He cites Steve Jobs' return to Apple in the late 1990s as an example.
He does.
Jobs famously streamlined Apple's product line,
Right.
drastically reducing the number of models offered and concentrating on a few core products that exemplified quality and innovation.
It's a prime example of how a commitment to quality
Right.
can lead not only to better products,
Okay.
but also to a more focused and efficient organization overall.
What I appreciate is that obsessing over quality doesn't necessarily imply striving for perfection.
Right.
It's about aiming to create the best possible work within the constraints of time and resources.
Absolutely. He offers a valuable insight into finding the balance between striving for excellence
Right.
and avoiding the trap of perfectionism.
Mm.
He recommends allowing ourselves adequate time to produce something great,
Right.
but not unlimited time, and focusing on creating something good enough to resonate with our target audience rather than aiming for a flawless masterpiece.
That's a helpful distinction.
It is.
I think many of us get stuck in the pursuit of perfection,
Right.
which ultimately hinders progress.
It does.
Shifting our focus to consistent incremental improvement is much more likely to yield meaningful results.
Exactly. This leads us to the next principle, improving our taste.
I'm intrigued by this concept. What does it entail?
It's about cultivating our ability to discern and appreciate truly exceptional work in our field.
So it's about honing our ability to recognize and appreciate quality.
Precisely, Newport argues that this is a fundamental aspect of producing high-quality work ourselves.
He uses an analogy to filmmaking to illustrate this point.
Okay.
He describes how he began studying film more seriously, watching classic movies, reading reviews, and even learning about various cinematography techniques.
Through this process, he gained a deeper understanding of what constitutes a great film, which in turn informed his own creative process.
It's like training our quality radar. The more we expose ourselves to truly exceptional work,
Right.
the better we become at identifying and replicating those qualities in our own endeavors.
Exactly. It's not merely about passive consumption,
Right.
but about actively studying the work we admire,
Okay.
dissecting it, comprehending what makes it effective,
Right.
and even attempting to emulate those techniques in our own practice.
He stresses the importance of seeking out and learning from those we admire in our field.
He does.
Whether it's reading their books, attending their workshops, or simply observing their work process, we can glean valuable insights that can help us elevate our own craft.
And it's an ongoing process.
It is.
The more we learn, the more refined our taste becomes,
Yeah.
and the higher our standards for our own work rise.
It's an inspiring idea. It suggests that by consciously cultivating our taste
Right.
and seeking opportunities for growth, we can continuously push ourselves to create better and more meaningful work.
Precisely, this ties in beautifully with the final principle of slow productivity, betting on yourself.
This is a powerful concept.
It is.
It's about taking calculated risks
Right?
and pursuing projects that are genuinely meaningful to us, even if they require sacrifices or stepping outside of our comfort zones.
Exactly. Newport argues that this willingness to bet on ourselves is often what distinguishes those who achieve truly exceptional results from those who remain confined to the status quo.
He uses inspiring examples such as Stephenie Meyer, who wrote the first Twilight novel, while managing her responsibilities as a stay-at-home mom.
She literally wrote the book in her spare time.
Wow.
Late at night after her children were asleep.
That's incredible.
It is.
It shows that when we're truly passionate about something, we can find ways to make it happen,
Right.
even if it means making sacrifices and working outside traditional boundaries.
Consider Bill Gates dropping out of Harvard to launch Microsoft. It was a huge gamble on himself,
It was.
and it obviously paid off immensely.
He also discusses the importance of finding ways to create skin in the game,
Right.
even within the context of a traditional job.
Okay.
This could involve taking on a challenging new project, proposing a bold new initiative, or even volunteering for a task that pushes us beyond our comfort zone.
The idea is that by putting ourselves on the line,
Right.
by taking on a degree of risk and responsibility
Right.
that compels us to rise to the occasion, we tap into a level of focus and motivation that we might not otherwise access.
It's about pushing ourselves to do our best work, not because someone is instructing us to, but because we're deeply invested in the outcome.
Exactly. Newport posits that this kind of self-driven motivation is often the key to achieving truly exceptional results.
This has been such an insightful discussion.
It have.
We've covered so much ground,
We have.
but I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this slow productivity philosophy.
I concur it's a rich and nuanced approach to work, and I encourage you to explore the book further,
Right.
to delve into these ideas in greater depth.
Absolutely. But before we conclude,
Okay.
I'd love to distill some key takeaways for our listeners,
Hmm.
especially for those feeling overwhelmed and burnt out by the demands of the modern workplace.
Okay. Condensing this wealth of information into key takeaways is a fantastic idea. It's easy to get lost in the details, but the core message of slow productivity is incredibly empowering. It reminds us that we possess more control over our work and our lives than we often perceive.
It's about reclaiming our agency, isn't it? Pushing back against this pervasive culture of busyness and rediscovering a more intentional and fulfilling way of working.
Precisely so. If we were to distill the essence of slow productivity into a few key takeaways, what would those be?
First and foremost, productivity is not about busyness. It's about directing our time and energy toward what truly matters and working in a manner that enables us to generate high-quality, impactful results.
That's a fantastic distillation of the concept. It's about shifting our mindset from quantity to quality and recognizing that slowing down can sometimes be the key to achieving greater success.
Indeed, this leads us to our second takeaway. Slowing down can actually lead to better results by adopting a more deliberate approach to our work. By concentrating on fewer things, but giving them our undivided attention, we can create more meaningful, impactful, and ultimately more rewarding work.
It's about liberating ourselves from the tyranny of the to-do list
Oh,
and embracing a more sustainable and fulfilling way of working.
exactly. Our third takeaway is that we have more control over our work than we might realize, even within the limitations of a traditional job. There are ways to incorporate elements of slow productivity and cultivate a more balanced and fulfilling work life.
It might necessitate some ingenuity, some negotiation, and perhaps even a willingness to challenge the status quo. But it's absolutely feasible to create a work life that aligns with our values and enables us to perform at our best.
I find that message of empowerment very encouraging. It's a reminder that we're not merely cogs in a machine. We have the power to shape our work experience and forge a more meaningful and fulfilling career.
Absolutely. As you were immersing yourself in slow productivity, were there any particular insights or strategies that resonated with you that you're keen to implement in your own work?
There were numerous takeaways, but one that truly stood out for me was the concept of working poetically. This notion of being mindful of the environment in which we work and recognizing that our surroundings can profoundly impact our creativity and productivity.
That's an intriguing concept. Newport uses some wonderful illustrations to convey this point. Take Mary Oliver, the Pulitzer Prize-winning poet, for example. She composed much of her work while strolling through the woods.
Precisely, she discovered that being in nature enveloped by the sights and sounds of the forest facilitated a deeper level of creativity and inspiration for her.
It serves as a reminder that sometimes the best way to ignite our creative flow is to step away from our desks and engage with the world around us.
It doesn't have to involve finding a literal cabin in the woods. It could be as simple as establishing a dedicated workspace that inspires us, incorporating rituals into our workday that help us focus and enter a creative mindset, or even just being more attuned to the sights, sounds, and even scents that surround us as we work.
It's about curating an environment that supports our best work, both physically and mentally.
Another strategy I'm eager to experiment with is the idea of scheduling rest projects into my week.
Rest projects. I'm unfamiliar with that term. Can you elaborate?
It's the concept of intentionally allocating time for activities that help us recharge and replenish our creative energy. It could range from reading a novel to going for a hike to spending quality time with loved ones.
That's a wonderful idea. It underscores that rest is not a luxury, but an essential component of a sustainable and productive work life.
By deliberately scheduling these rest projects into our week, we're more likely to actually make time for them instead of allowing them to be squeezed out by the demands of our work.
It's about approaching rest with the same level of importance and intentionality as we do our work tasks.
I believe this ties back to the broader message of slow productivity. It's about finding a balance, a rhythm that allows us to be both productive and fulfilled, both ambitious and present in our lives.
It's about working smarter, not harder, and recognizing that sometimes the most productive action we can take is to step away from our work and grant ourselves permission to rest, recharge, and reconnect with what truly matters.
It's a perfect point to reflect upon before we officially wrap up. I'd like to get your final thoughts on Slow productivity. What's the one message, the one idea that you want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
If I could impart one enduring message from our exploration of slow productivity, it would be this. Envision measuring success not by the extent of your busyness, but by the profound impact and exceptional quality of your creations. How would that reshape your perspective on work?
That's a thought-provoking question. It compels us to reevaluate our priorities and redefine what it truly means to achieve success in our professional endeavors.
Indeed, it encapsulates the essence of Newport's advocacy, a shift from a culture dominated by busyness to a culture that values craftsmanship, where deep focus, quality over quantity, and a sustainable and fulfilling way of working reigns supreme.
The remarkable aspect of this approach is that it benefits not only ourselves, but also enhances the caliber of our work and ultimately amplifies the impact we have on the world.
Undoubtedly, when we experience reduced stress, heightened focus, and greater engagement in our work, we naturally produce superior results.
It's a mutually beneficial outcome. We enhance our well-being and concurrently elevate the quality of our work. It's akin to breaking free from a cycle of perpetual overwhelm and rediscovering the inherent joy and fulfillment derived from engaging in work that truly holds significance.
Precisely. It's important to remember that it's a journey, not a destination. There's no universally applicable approach to slow productivity. It's about experimentation, identifying what resonates with you personally, and continuously adapting your approach as your needs and circumstances evolve.
It's also about granting ourselves permission to decelerate, to step back, and to reassess our priorities throughout this process.
Absolutely. The principles and strategies outlined in Slow Productivity furnish a roadmap, a collection of tools and insights that can empower us to navigate the intricacies of the modern workplace and cultivate a more intentional, fulfilling, and ultimately more productive work life.
Engaging in this exploration of this book with you has been an absolute pleasure. I feel like I've emerged with a renewed sense of optimism and a repertoire of practical strategies that I can implement immediately.
The feeling is mutual. I encourage our listeners to embark on their own exploration of these concepts and uncover the transformative potential of slow productivity to wrap things up nicely for everyone listening today. Let's provide a concise 10-point summary of what we've learned about slow productivity from Cal Newport's book.
Sounds good to me. Let's start with the foundation. Slow productivity is an alternative approach to work that prioritizes quality over quantity. It emphasizes working at a sustainable pace that allows you to consistently produce high-quality work without burning out.
Point number 2, recognize that busyness doesn't equate to productivity. Often the appearance of busyness masks inefficiency and a lack of focus.
For point number 3, limit the bigs. Contain the small focus on a few crucial projects, rather than spreading yourself too thin established systems to handle the influx of small tasks efficiently so they don't derail your primary objectives.
Next up, work at a natural pace. Embrace a rhythm that allows for periods of intense focus as well as rest and creative exploration. Don't force yourself to work at a constant, unsustainable pace.
Let's add to that. Cultivate a workspace that inspires you. Your surroundings can profoundly impact your creativity and productivity. Consider incorporating elements of nature art or anything else that sparks your imagination.
Number 6, schedule rest projects. Intentionally allocate time for activities that help you recharge and replenish your creative energy, such as reading, hiking, or spending time with loved ones.
Don't forget to obsess over quality. Instead of rushing to churn out work, prioritize creating something truly exceptional. This might involve experimenting, iterating, and investing in tools and resources that elevate your craft.
Point number 8, improve your taste. Expose yourself to high-quality work in your field to develop a discerning eye for excellence. This can inform and elevate your own creative standards.
We are almost there. Bet on yourself, take calculated risks, and pursue projects that are genuinely meaningful to you. This often involves stepping outside your comfort zone and pushing yourself beyond your perceived limitations.
And finally, remember that technology can be both a blessing and a curse. Use it strategically to enhance your productivity, but don't allow it to control you. Set boundaries, minimize distractions, and reclaim your time and attention.
It's been a fantastic deep dive today, and I feel like we've all learned a great deal about how to approach our work in a more mindful and effective way.
Indeed, thank you for joining us on this exploration of slow productivity.
Until next time, keep diving.